Nothing to see here, just some Nazi salutes to today's football match in Rivne, Ukraine. A video by Azov Sergeant Dmitry Yusichenko, who fought in Mariupol and returned from Russian captivity in 2022. I remember when you get called a fucking Nazi for having the gall to point out that the money and war material we were sending was helping Ukraine and proxy form itself into a neo-Nazi state with Azov as his main power center. Oh well, I'm sure there will be no blowback. As many of you said in 2022, it was a really bad idea for the neoliberal consensus to get involved with the proxy conflict and the sole intention of weakening Russia because you'd been driven insane by Russiagate. This is not a justification for anything Russia has done. Their invasion was illegal, and this war is their fault. However, it is also America's fault for treating Ukraine as a proxy to be bled to harm Russia for knowingly arming neo-Nazi groups in the country. I think it's still Russia that is like primarily responsible for this, as well as Russia is still more responsible for this than anyone else. Before the Russian invasion, you could point to America's involvement and America's intervention as being a primary party that was responsible, because they were, right? So much so that they had to write legislation to be like, oops, we're not going to give weapons to neo-Nazis anymore. I remember that because I covered it at the time. This was before the Trump administration. This is under the Obama administration. So that was a big point of contention, even among American legislators, where they were like, maybe we shouldn't be giving the fucking neo-Nazi Azov battalion weapons. This is, again, before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So that was definitely galvanizing for this movement. But obviously, single-handedly, Russia invading Ukraine made these guys the only game in town. Straight up, you know? You're just doing the "you made us become a Nazi" meme? Wait, what? Oh, bullshit, Haas. The Nazi problem in Ukraine began way before the war. No, I just said that. I said that. But there's a difference. There is a difference between someone in like fucking Ohio being like, oh no, I'm imagining that the great replacement is happening, I'm going to be a Nazi now, versus a fucking country that is militarily invaded by an irredentist force that's like literally blowing up entire fucking building blocks. And then the only guys with arms and the proper experience in fucking combat are the neo-Nazis. You're going to be like, well, you know, in the past, I fucking fought with these guys, but I can't hate on them right now. They're defending me. This is how it works. The fuck do you mean? I said this on like literally in the month of February in 2022. I literally wrote an extensive fucking thing about this happening. I said Russia's invasion is going to embolden all of the neo-Nazi and nationalist forces in the country, because whenever a much larger power invades a smaller country whose entire national mythology revolves around sovereignty from Russia, okay? Because that's what Ukraine is. Its entire national project is about not being Russia, okay? So if you fucking invade, if you're Russia and you invade Ukraine, then yeah, these guys are gonna fucking go full Nazi. What is the expectation? Like you just blow up, your fucking grandmother blows up, and then what? You're supposed to be like, yeah, well, you know, my grandmother blew up because my neighbor was a Nazi, so that's fine. Is that what you think? Do you think Israel has a right to defend itself? What do you think? What kind of radicalization do you think happens when the Gaza Strip is blown up into oblivion? And I'm not even making the same consideration here, because Ukraine has national sovereignty. Ukraine had internal politics, internal dynamics, has had its own issues with this. They're not Nazis, these guys are not. But what do you think they're doing here? I mean, if we can't say these guys are Nazis, who can we say is a Nazi, dude? What are you talking about? Hamas. No, Hamas. Oh, you were saying Hamas are not Nazis. Yeah. No, of course. I'm not saying that they are. I'm not saying that they are at all. The difference between neo-Nazi sentiment in Ukraine being different than like a radicalized force that is emancipatory is that the fucking neo-Nazis in Ukraine historically also killed Jews and participated in the fucking Holocaust. But you know what? Ukraine also had a much larger participating force in the Red Army in liberating the fucking camps. So it went both ways. But obviously in the aftermath of the dissolution of the USSR, when you fucking come back and like invade the country, they're gonna go full Nazi. How is it helpful to paint Ukrainians as Nazis when the country is literally being invaded and colonized? Did I do that? Azov is just Hamas? No, Azov is not just Hamas. Hamas is not getting fucking weapons from America and training from America. Shut the fuck up. How do you cover this shit but not apartment buildings getting blown up by Russians? I literally just said those words. Oh my God. God damn. I just said that. This is entirely Russia's fucking fault. That was my point. They're likely Banderists, which are Nazi collaborators and Holocaust perpetrators, but Ukraine insists they're different because later on they fought the Nazis too. Unfortunately for them, you can't really ignore the stain of doing the literal Holocaust. Exactly. Some chatters don't listen or they're just bad faith. Yeah, I assume that chatter was just being bad faith. I don't know. Yeah. Have you heard about Trump using nuclear safety funds to renovate the Flying Palace monstrosity? Nice. I love that. Fuck it. Why wouldn't they turn into full communists? A lot of former Eastern Bloc countries are insanely anti-communist due to mismanagement from the USSR, a steady flow of propaganda, but mostly like material conditions worsening over time. Anyway, Iraq is a decent analog. The fighters on the ground were fighting for unsavory groups with the goal was the defense of their country. I mean, yeah, kind of. Nazism is becoming increasingly popular. A well-known political influencer in Taiwan was just exposed for having private chat logs where they advised supporters of the ruling party to learn anti-communist and anti-opposition tactics from the Nazis. Yeah.